All right, there we go. So I always go on a little bit early so that we let the room populate. When it starts to, you'll see people right over here, but people will start popping up any minute. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the first PBR Monday of 2022. And as always, we're going to allow the room to populate a little bit before we get going. See, you can already see people are starting to come in.
Ah, welcome.
Hope you all had a good holiday season, just like we did. Got a little bit of news tonight, some news about the tour and just some news about things in general. As you come in, please be sure to give StreamYard your credentials if you're on Facebook so that we know who you are when you are asking questions, or as Sean Smith has just done, Happy New Year. Sean, happy to you too, buddy. I thought about you quite a bit in the past couple of weeks, and it'll become obvious why here in a few minutes.
Hey.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing, buddy? So let's see. Is it? No, it's not quite 7 o'clock yet. I like to wait until it's 7 o'clock to really get it rolling. You know, that's the dynamic that we talk about in music. You know,
You're
you just
a man
got
of punctuality.
I know, but you got to build up to it. You got to
Oh,
build
and
up to
suspense.
it. Suspense. See, that's it. That's when you go from the minor chord back to the major chord. That's why if you stretch it beyond that bar a little bit, it creates suspense. Just like we're doing right now. But look, it's 7 o'clock and there's already all kinds of people in the room, so let's get going. Well, thanks for joining us. I decided to do this tonight. My co-host tonight is my lovely wife, Megan. Say hi.
Hello.
And I brought her in because she's the reason her and the two grommets that are upstairs were trying to get to go to sleep are the reason that I've been gone for more than a month. As most of you know, we took almost a month off, toured the country, had a wonderful time in our RV. We went all the way down to Key West, and we stayed on the beach down in Key West for about 10 days, where you could drop the back deck of your toy hauler off and watch manatees swim by in the Gulf of Mexico. And there was nothing wrong with that, was there? We had a good time.
Yeah.
Played jazz music every night. It's awesome. We had a really good time with the kids. We did some tourist kind of stuff too. We took the ferry out to Dry Tortugas, and then we just went to some other places in Florida. I went to grade school in Florida. And so I still have amazingly some connections down there. You know, people that I went to grade school with, we're still in touch, and so I visit them whenever I go down there. But we went to, remember the day we went to my elementary school and they wouldn't let us in?
Yeah.
You
must have lost touch with them.
Oh, God almighty. I was thinking about bequeathing them some money in my will too. We go to my elementary school, we walk in. It's a few days before Christmas. I know they're on the holiday schedule. There's nothing that ever happens that last few days before Christmas in any elementary school.
We're wearing the T-shirts.
We're even wearing our T-shirts.
Matching T-shirts.
So I bring the whole family in, and all I want to do is show my son, who's in kindergarten now and is getting ready to start elementary school next fall. Well, this is where Daddy went to elementary school. Now, I was down there about 10 years ago, and I went in there, and there was no problem. They said, hey, we're always happy to see alumni of good old St. Francis Xavier. But we go in this time, and there's this really nice woman who is Jamaican, I would say.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. You know, very well-educated woman, two wonderful little kids there. We talked to her in the office, and, they were talking about we just had a great time talking with them. And finally, this woman walks in, and she's like the school secretary. She sits down. And I would say that we understood just by her demeanor that the thing may not go very far.
I also felt like we weren't dealing with the boss.
With the boss. Yeah, we weren't. It wasn't the A team.
Yeah.
It was the A-hole team, but not the A team. So we said, look, all I would like to do, I know you guys are busy. I know we're unannounced, but is there any way I could at least take my son upstairs to the library and show him where I checked out my first book? And this woman looks at us. She looks down the end of her nose, which was a long way. And she says, in the snottiest tone of voice that you can imagine, why, I am sorry, but that's simply out of the question. You would have to make a request. You would have to schedule an appointment. And it takes weeks to schedule appointments for us to show anybody inside of the school. And this poor woman, this poor Jamaican woman, I thought she was going to have a baby right there. So, I mean, it was an audible gasp that you could hear coming out of the background. So that was kind of funny. But
They knew about the sodium. That's
They knew about
Words
this.
got out about the sodium.
See, when you let Brett Markham in the group, everything goes downhill.
And he could be trusted.
But what we did was we played jazz music every night we went, and that's kind of those of you that know me and follow me on Facebook know that's kind of where the direction that our lives are getting ready to go in. The hard part was convincing Megan that she could do it. Megan's way better than I am, but she just doesn't know it. She's classically trained. She's done recitals. She plays beautifully. And but every time I talk about you and I can go out and do this, we can play jazz music. She goes, no, I don't think we can do it. And then the thing I think that put it over the top was on this trip we went and listened to some other people play. Remember the guy at the Shell Factory in North Fort Myers?
Uh-huh.
At that point, I think you understood that the bar is kind of low. So we heard other people playing in campgrounds and stuff like that. They'd have these little bands in there, and I said, "See, that's what your competition is." She goes, okay, I got it now. So that's what we're going to do. We're in the process of selling the toy hauler that we have right now, and I have to sell the Shelby. I know it hurts my heart to do it, but I'm selling the Shelby. We're selling our current toy hauler. We're upgrading to a newer one. It's about the same size, but it's got a bigger garage, which we need to store our PA and our musical instruments. And it's one of the cool ones. It's got the back gate drops down and forms a little deck back there, which is a ready-made stage. We got a PA that fits on that stage. You can shove right out. It's even in road cases, so you don't even have to lift it. You just shove it out onto the gate, and you are 5 minutes away from being able to play. It's a really nice little JBL PA that we bought last summer and everything. That's kind of what I think we're going to be doing in the future, just touring the country and playing some jazz
We'll be
music.
coming to a KOA near you.
A KOA near you.
Soon.
So that's that's what we did in this trip, and we had a really good time doing that. And before I get going too far, I do want to mention some things that have come up in the past couple of days that are specifically related to the tour. And then I'll get back around to the tour in a really roundabout way. So I get things in the mail from tour guys all the time, and I got this the other day from Team Your Mom. Your mom rode the Tour of Idaho. Now, after this summer, on the back of this shirt, since we have a new trail called Big Dick that's going to appear way up north, I'm going to add a little addendum to the back of this. Your mom rode the Tour of Idaho and did Big Dick.
What?
So thank you, Team Your Mom. This made my day. When I opened this up and it came out of the mail, it absolutely made my day. Thank you guys so much. It's the most awesome thing in the world. I get things from people all the time that I don't deserve. Y'all are way too kind to me.
I'm going to hide the shirt.
No, you're not going to hide it. I'm hiding it from you.
I don't think you should put the addendum on there.
The addendum's what makes it rock. But I get way too much cool stuff from you guys. I really appreciate all of it. The other super cool thing that I got this year, which those of you who got a calendar saw it because there's a photograph of it in the calendar. John Gower made me a saw. He showed up with this saw, and I said, dude, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And about a month later, a saw identical to it, and it turns out he handmade them both, showed up in the mail. So I got a saw this year. I got that shirt. I got some other stuff from you guys. Thank you so much. It's all greatly appreciated. I hope those of you who got a calendar liked them. I thought they came out great this year. I really liked for the foreseeable future, we'll still continue to do calendars. It's a royal pain in the butt. There's a story in that. I told you about a person whose name will not be mentioned ordered a calendar this year, but there's only one person that did it this year. My favorite ever was Carrie Barton, who sent me a stamped self-addressed envelope that was addressed to me to send the calendar back to her. That was the best one ever. But this year, there was a person, all I'm going to say is this person's a very good friend of mine. It's a guy I really like a lot. And he bought a calendar. And a few weeks ago, he says, I know you don't want to hear from Tour of Idaho guys right now because you're in the middle of your vacation, but I haven't gotten my calendar yet. And I was one of the first people to order. And I got back to him about a day later. And I said, well, you sure were. And I've got a copy of the label here. It went out USPS to this address right here. And he goes, oh, well, the post service doesn't deliver to that address.
Oops.
Well, how is it supposed to get to you if you gave me an address that the post service doesn't deliver to? Well, FedEx and UPS will. DHL won't either, but FedEx and UPS will. So I just sent them another calendar. But the calendars came out great this year, and I had a lot of fun doing it this year. The hassles were minimal, and I hope that those of you who got a calendar liked them. I thought they came out great. So I had to beg and plead tonight to do this because we got back from eating early, except it wasn't that great tonight, was it? Yeah, we had some issues.
You had some issues.
Why is it that I'm always the one that has
I
issues?
don't know why. Do you always have issues? I don't know. I would love to know.
I think you tell those people. I was at Lowe's. I think you told them to do that.
No.
But anyway, I had to bring the boss on tonight so I could come on because this, PBR Monday is an hour of family time that I don't get to spend every week, and I have to account for that. I have to make it up somehow. New sofa, a little bit more makeup money and stuff like that. I pay out of my hide for this. David Green, how you doing? Craig, Jeff, Jeffrey. Greetings, everyone. Happy New Year to everybody. So I want to tell you all a story, and this story kind of look
Thanks,
at
Sean.
that. So I want to rewind back to the 1980s. In the 1980s, I was in my 20s and early 30s, and that was my really great guns climbing period. I started my in climbing and probably in motorcycles too. I haven't gotten that far in motorcycles, but in climbing, if you ever get to the point to where you're one of the hot guys, that doesn't last forever. You either get killed or you get old. But one way or the other, you can only climb at really high levels for a certain amount of time. And back in those days, you kind of weren't considered a complete climber unless you did everything. So you had to do some mountaineering, you had to do some alpinism, you did big walls, you did crag routes, you did all that stuff. And the cool thing about that era was that, guys like me, I was never a full-time climber. I mean, I always had a job, so I had to be at work on Monday morning. And, guys like me at that time, if you were kind of close to the top of the game, 5'11" was the standard back in those days. And the guys who were professionals, the guys who were climbing the hardest stuff were doing 512s and just starting to push into that 513. I did like 2 512s my whole climbing career, and I thought they were really hard. Never did a 513. I put up a route once with one spot of aid that when they freed the aid, they said it was 513. But basically, 511 was my top competent level of climbing. But in the mid-'80s, I could walk up to 511 climbs. It didn't matter where they were at, and I was probably going to get up it. And that was a really good feeling. So mid-'80s, like 1984, 85, 86, 87, I would go back and forth across the country and do these climbing areas. And I would just do like every classic route that I could find in those areas. And it was a lot of fun because you'd walk up, like I'd walk into El Dorado and look at the Bastille and say, let's go. And 2 days later, we would have climbed every route on the Bastille. Same with Red Guard Wall. We did all those classic routes on the Red Guard Wall. I had a hard time with some of them. They're 511 in El Dorado's for real because it's kind of a funky place. But in Yosemite and places like that, we go up and do some of that stuff. And it was just a great feeling to know that when I walked into Yosemite, if I looked up at a wall, there was a pretty good chance I could climb almost anything I wanted to in that wall. Not everything, but a lot of the stuff. But that doesn't last forever. Your body starts to break down a little bit. You get a little older. I turned 30 in 1986, and my fingers were already completely knackered. They were already starting to turn arthritic. I get these really bad bouts of tendonitis, and you couldn't train. Then when you can't train, there's some psychological things that happen to you too. You just don't feel like you're on it. And so I remember I was guiding a lot back in those days. So I guess I was semi-professional because I was guiding climbing in the summer and guiding skiing in the winter. And at one point, I was back in Red River Gorge, and I think it was the summer of 1987. And there's a place there called Hen's Nest Rock. Hello, Jim Spooner. And it was in the middle of August, and August is the most oppressive heat and humidity that bad dreams are capable of conjuring back in Kentucky. It's awful. And so I'm back there and I'm guiding these guys, and I'm sure they're long gone. So it's like I didn't particularly care for these two guys in the first place. They were chain smokers. So they're smoking cigarettes, and they were kind of fat, and they had real delusions of grandeur. They did not know their size because they insisted that I take them up to try all these hard routes, and it was all I could do to get those guys. You had to ford the river and then climb about 800 feet up this hillside, and I thought that was going to kill them. So we get up, and so I said, okay, you're paying. So there's a route there called Finger Licking Good, and I'd done the first ascent of it, and I just had this route ruthlessly wired. So I go up and I'm climbing up, and it's like get up it, but it's really hot, and the lichen that covers that rock back there is kind of greasy because it's 100% humidity day. I remember climbing up and working out the hard moves and going, man, this is kind of hard today. And I got up there, and your choice is to either protect the route or climb it, because the places where you would normally stick little wired stoppers and things like that, those are the only places to stick your fingers. So the route goes from like 510D to 513D if you try to sew the thing up with protection. So I'm up there climbing up this thing. I get about 30 feet off the ground, and Megan's heard this story before, and I just take this whipper fall. And I rip out all these small wires I've got, and I land on the ground right on my back, and it knocks all of the air out of my body. So I go like this. And when you hit the ground, this enormous cloud of dust goes up in the air. So when I start to breathe back in, I'm huffing in like all this dust, all these insects, gnats, flies, horse flies. So I'm laying there like choking on all this dust and these insects that I've sucked into my lungs, coughing, gasping. I started barfing. I thought I might have broken some ribs or something too, because I was hurt. And I'm sure I concussed myself mildly. So I'm laying there, and finally when all of the drama sort of settles down, I'm looking up at these two guys sitting there looking at me, smoking cigarettes. And I go, I really need to change my life. So the next day, I'd done most of my undergraduate work at the University of Kentucky, but I'd pieced it together. I started in 1974. That was my freshman year. And I went full time for 1 year, and then it was pretty much part time after that for a long time because I worked. I didn't want to have student debt. It wasn't as much of a problem back in those days as it is now, but it's a problem. So, I always worked. I'd take a few classes here and there, and I wasn't in any hurry. It was kind of fun just taking a class or maybe two every semester and branching out and trying different things. But at that point, I'm laying there and I go, I really think I need to change my game a little bit. So I walked down to Eastern Kentucky University the next day. And there was a reason for that, but I decided not to go back to UK. I went to Eastern the next day. Tuition was a lot cheaper. It was a little bit more like a community college. And I remember walking in and saying, well, I want to sign up to go to school here in the fall. And they said, well, you have to declare a major because you have all these hours. I think I already had 140 hours or something like that, but no degree. And I said, you can't do an undeclared major, not with as many hours as you have. And I said, well, what do you suggest? And they said, well, what do you like? I said, well,
like things that are hard.
That's exactly it. I said, well, I don't know, what's challenging? And they said, that would be either math, engineering, or physics. And I said, make it physics. So about 3 weeks later, I walked into the first physics class I ever took in my life, and I loved it. And after that, it was all about physics. So I kind of quit climbing pretty much cold turkey at the end of the 80s, like around 88 or something like that. I still guided just a little bit, and I guided skiing in the winter, but it was pretty much a pretty rapid transition from one thing to the next. And that's getting ready to happen again, I think. Not as rapidly, but I think that, I haven't ridden a motorcycle now in 2 months, and guess what? I can play guitar. My fingers work.
So all that's missing is you need a smoker looking down at you.
Yeah.
And like, honey, do you need some help? And then we're on to music.
Believe me, a few Tour of Idaho adventures have substituted for that pretty adequately.
Seems like that's always a low point in your life. And
yeah, it's a yeah. Anyway, be that as it may. So, as I've told many of you before, I don't know how much longer this Tour of Idaho thing is going to go on. I know it's going to happen this year, and I suspect it'll probably happen the following year. But at some point, I just think that I need to kind of move on to the next thing. Hey, cousin Mike. Well, we got all kinds of people here today. We got Brent Markham. We got cousin Mike Crawford. Holy cow.
Oh, hey, I got a shout for my Kentucky redneck accent there.
Cousin Mike, that place of yours looks like it's coming along mighty good, buddy. Hope you have a big garage for motorcycles, because the next time I come back, I'm bringing all of them. But so this year the tour is going to go on. I'm going to go out and ride, saw as much as I can. You know, we're going to put it together. I'm going to work hard at it this year. And if I told you I'm going to do it, it's going to get done. I guarantee that. And again, I suspect that the same thing's going to happen in 2023. But sometime beyond 2022 or 2023, I'm a musician from now on. That's my new thing. And I have to do it because I already have problems with my fingers. I mean, look at my hands. My fingers are all bent and stuff. That's from climbing and crashing motorcycles. And, you know, it was kind of like at the end of this season, even though this season was kind of just getting back into the saddle for me after missing the whole year, the year before, you know, I got to where in the fall I was riding every day, and, you know, I was starting to kind of ride up to my standard again. And, you know, I would get off at the end of the day and my hands would like be really stiff. And then I couldn't play the way I wanted to play for a few days. I'd have to spend some time loosening them up and everything. Climbing is incompatible with playing guitars, and so is riding dirt bikes. Street bikes aren't so bad, but in dirt bikes, you know, your hands are a really important attachment point to the bike. And that's why all of us have Popeye forearms, because, you know, at some point, even though you know that you're trying not to turn the carbon in those grips into diamond by squeezing them too hard, at some point you do have to hang on to the motorcycle, and having strong hands and strong shoulders and stuff like that is it's a big heads up. One of the reasons that I think that I was able to adapt pretty quickly from street bikes to dirt bikes, because I did it backward, is because I have strong hands and I have strong shoulders and a strong back from climbing. And so that stuff kind of translates well into riding dirt bikes. But I can see the writing on the wall, and the end is going to come, and it's going to be sooner rather than later, but that's down the road a little bit. Let's talk about this year. So I did not do what I said I was going to do, and I'm very sorry, but we've had a pretty good holiday the past few days, hanging out with the kids and stuff like that. I told everybody today that I was going to go in today and try to clean up the forum and update update the team entries and things like that. I did not get a chance to do that today. We had a pretty big day today. So I'm going to do that tomorrow. But this is what I need for everybody to do. I don't mind. I say this all the time. I do not mind working on the Tour of Idaho. And those of you that say, man, I can't imagine how much time it takes, you are absolutely right. It does take time.
I do kind of mind, but...
Yeah, it's a lot.
No.
You know, but I spend every weekend out riding trails, trying to check them out. I spend a lot of time sawing. I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that everything I tell you is true. And that's very important to me. If I tell you that I have ridden this trail this year and it's in good shape, then unless there was some act of God that I don't know anything about, it is in good shape. You know, things change all the time, but I try to go check all that stuff out. I try to make sure the waypoints are exactly where they need to be. You know, every year I hear from a guy, well, you know, I tried to find that waypoint and I couldn't find it. I hear that a lot about fence line. It's because guys are not on the trail, which is not unexpected there. But, you know, the waypoints are pretty much where they need to be. I go out and ride all that stuff, and I use my own directions to make sure that you can find a way. And especially this year, where a couple days are mystery days. Last year, I think I had something like 25 or 26 mystery routes out in the desert. I rode every one of those using my own direction. You don't do that in one afternoon. I had to go out there 3 or 4 times. It's a 90-minute drive there and back from the house. So it's, you know, there's a lot of time that goes into this, but I'm going to put in the time this year and do it. But I need for you to do something for me in return. So already this year, I've looked at that page, the team declaration page, and there's some things that we tell you we need for you to do before you post anything on the team declaration page. And it basically boils down to have your shit together before you tell us you're coming to do it. You need to know who's on your team. You need to know what day you're going to start. Everybody needs to be registered in a forum, and everybody needs to be on the Facebook page. That's not an overly complex set of directions.
4 things?
Yeah, 4 things. And you're going to ride like 11 or 12 days. So you're going to ride more days than there are things we ask you to do in advance. Yet, miraculously, I see that occurring about 50% of the time. And so, I always email people and I say, look, you are missing this. Fix this. When you've got it all fixed, I'll look at it again. And what I get are like these incredible PMs. It boggles the mind. So in one case, I said, I think that I don't see everybody that's on your team here. I see they're all registered in the forum, but I don't see them all on the Facebook page. And about a week later, I get a reply back, oh, well, that person registered in the Facebook page under another name. Well, you're not supposed to do that. The whole reason we asked you to register in Facebook is so we know who you are.
So use your name.
It is your name.
Yeah.
You're not a guy that got out of the maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, on Terrace Road, and you're going to show up at my flagpole. We want to know who you are. I check all that stuff out. And I don't think that's asking too much, considering what I and many, many others put into this for you. So don't do any of that stuff. That's also how you get a really interesting team name, by the way. If you start doing a bunch of that kind of stuff, I'm actually going to put some thought into what your team name should be. I might even call it Jeff Jensen or somebody like that. And if I call Jeff, you're going to get a great team name. So please make sure that before you go to that team declaration page, you got your stuff together. Now, I understand that this year there's a little anxiety about the fact that I'm limiting the number of teams. I have set that number at about the number that we've been getting the last few years. So I don't think anybody's going to get excluded. And the only thing is there may be some returning teams that may get excluded. That may happen, but I don't even think there's a really...
It feels more like returning problems.
You should have done it while you were out there. And we are, by the way, going to stick to the plan this year to where if you have done extensive pre-riding or you tried it last year and didn't make it, you're going to have some more things you're going to have to ride. We're going to give the biggest advantage this year to soloists who haven't ridden any of the route before. As always, we will encourage you, if you're close to ride day one, you can ride day one without any penalty. We won't penalize you for that. But if you show up and you haven't ridden any of it, there'll probably be an extra point in it for you. We're going to do something to sort of make that work. And the only other thing I'm going to do this year is after, again, getting deluged by emails and information from the interwebs, I've decided to start calling the challenge section this year, we're going to call them the shits. So it'll be shit 1, shit 2, shit 3. And I take it that many of you will understand the reference there. So that's it. That everything else that I told you this year, I'm about half joking on that. But if you hear me refer to shit 1, I'm talking about the challenge section on day 1. The website's a family website, don't you think?
No.
What? Anyway, so that's it. So what we're going to do now is I'll take questions if you have any. Let me see what I got here. Hey, Ed Spooner. I can't wait to get up and see you guys. Steve Monk, Cousin Mike, Jim Spooner. Thank God I was too stubborn or stupid to quit last year. For those of you who don't know, Jim Spooner is a story for the ages. He was a soloist. I'm always the most proud of the soloists because I think those guys really take on a lot. And Jim Spooner last year just had a trip for the freaking ages. He didn't start out as a soloist. And the other thing that Jim did, Jim's a friend of mine now, and we're friends based on one thing, which is that the number of times I have seen people abandon climbing partners, motorcycle partners, boating partners when things go south is the stuff of legends and something I could never stand. I don't care that you paid a whole boatload of money to get yourself here, and you're halfway up this climb, or you're halfway down this river, or you're halfway along this motorcycle ride, you can't just ditch your partner. You can't just chuck them overboard because it's now inconvenient for you. And when Ed got hurt, Jim's dad, he got him out. He got him out, and then he PM'd me and said, is there a chance I can make it? And I said, yes, there absolutely is. And because you were a good dude and you took care of your dad, what we did was we bent a rule for him a little bit. We allowed him to ride the solo variant so he would have time to get into Pocatello before dark. And I think that's wonderful. I've seen it on the tour. There are guys all the time that get out there and somebody can't keep up and they just leave them by the side of the road. Well, good luck. There's a road right there. Find your way into town. Now, there are a lot of teams that don't do that. The Knights a couple years ago, they had to drop a team member, and they did it in the most intelligent, mature, kind-hearted manner that you could possibly imagine. And if you know those guys, you would understand that that's the kind of guy they are. They're high-quality guys, high-character guys, and they would do things like that. But not everybody does. I mean, I've seen it before. There was a guy a few years ago that got here and was just raging about how his partner slowed him down all on day one, despite the fact his partner had done all the navigation. His partner had the only GPS unit, had done all the map study and everything else, but this guy was one of these, red hot, always on the gas kind of guys. And he got here and he just slagged his partner while the guy was standing 10 feet away. And if you do that, I don't like you. I don't respect that at all. That's an unkind thing to do. And, of course, that guy ditched his partner, and then he got out and he got lost. And then instead of it being his partner's fault, it was all my fault after that. So you can kind of spot those guys coming. I think that guy's still bitching on Adventure Rider, too.
Did you find him? Did he get out?
No, he's one of those kind of guys I wish he just disappeared in the woods and I'd never heard from again. So we, this year I'm in no hurry to get up the route. It's going to be the parts that I'm going to put up are substantially like the route last year. But as I told everybody earlier, we are going to, we're going to have a lot of mystery route this year. And we're going to have, nobody had any problems last year on the directions that Jim Spooner and Andrew Hickson came up with for what was then day 9. So we're going to do that for quite a few days. We're going to have a mystery section out in the desert again where it's going to be the same way. It's actual true orienteering out in the desert, except you'll be there early in the day instead of late in the day. We're going to give you the half day off in Pocatello, the half day off up in Salmon. All that's the same. You'll be able to ride all the stuff out of North Fork, the inn at North Fork. You'll be spending 2 nights there. It'll be one place on the tour where you're spending 2 nights. And I'm still working out a deal for the mystery night to where I'll take care of that for you. I'll tell you that day, this is where you're going to go, and they're expecting you if we can do that. So I'm really looking forward to it this year. Those of you who are riding it this year are just really, really, really in for a treat. As I told all of you earlier, I'm not too much worried about like T2s and stuff anymore. I'm not even going to put up a T2 route this year. It's going to be T1. And then after that, if I know you and I like you, I may give you some insight as to what we're doing this year. I may even go out and ride it with you. But other than that, I'm not putting a lot of this stuff up on the web because I am really even in Idaho, something else, like we were in Florida. Remember how great it was the first couple days down there? We're looking around and palm trees, and it's like 88 degrees. We're driving around. Remember you were looking at job listings?
Oh, yeah.
But you spend about 2 weeks there, and it's like traffic everywhere and people everywhere.
Iguanas everywhere.
Iguanas falling out. So people had iguanas as pets, and they started turning them loose, and iguanas breed like rats. It's incredible. So iguanas will fall out of trees. When it gets cold, you'll be sitting out in the yard or something, and an iguana will fall out of a tree into your lap. It's incredible. And you can't shoot the little sons of bitches. If you shoot them, like the animal people get all upset. But they're absolutely displacing native species. And the campground we were at, there were iguanas everywhere. I had to take a baseball bat to him to chase him out of the back of the toy hauler. But if you shoot one, somebody's going to have a heart attack. So the way they hunt them is with BB guns.
Or air rifles, I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, is that what that is?
Air rifle. Yeah, air rifle is a better term for it than a BB gun. But yeah, they have high-powered air rifles with these big sniper scopes and stuff on them, so that at least it doesn't make any noise. It's kind of a stealthy way of doing it. So we're in Florida, and we're sitting there, and we're going, yeah, man, I can't wait to get back to Idaho. I mean, I know it's going to be cold and miserable, but it's still better there. And I'm kind of interested in keeping it that way. And, you know, these trails that we're going to be sending you guys on this year, not a lot of people know about some of these trails. You know, I've lived here for 30 years now, and I just found out about a few of these things in the last couple of years. You know, one year I wasn't able to get up and ride the stuff. So this year I had a big list of trails that I've been wanting to get to. I knocked them all off, and they were all so good. We put them on the tour. But some of these trails, you will be the only people that ride down that trail all summer long. I absolutely guarantee it. Now, we have a little of that right now, but you're going to have a lot of it this year. There are going to be entire days where the only other person that you might see out there would be a Tour of Idaho person. And they're remote. They're in the middle of nowhere. You know, if you get knackered, there would be some issues, I think, finding you in some days. So the level of adventure goes way, way, way up with stuff like that. And I want to keep it that way. So I'm not gonna publish maps for this stuff. I'll tell you where you're going. If you make it a certain distance into the tour, I'll tell you where you're going the next day. So you get through day 2, I'll tell you where you're going day 3. You get through day 3, I'll tell you where you're going day 4. The parts of the tour that are already out there, that we've already advertised, we'll leave that stuff up. But the new connecting trails, if you get through what you have to get through to get there, following tour rules, I'll tell you where you're going the next day. And in some cases, we'll send you directions, kind of like we do in the mystery routes, but a little bit more detailed. In other cases, you'll just get a sheet like you got for day 9 last year that says, you know, go 10 miles down this trail, look for this trail number, turn right. I think you guys will really like that. Now, some people have already been giving me the blues about, well, the thing I liked best about the tour was spending all winter working on the navigation and stuff. You can still do that. I mean, there's still enough of it out there that you can look through that stuff and get through it. But not a lot of people did that prep the right way anyway. You know, a lot of people use that time to try to create their own track, you know, stitch those waypoints together, which is entirely the wrong way to do it. And the one thing that I'm most gratified about is I think that finally enough people have done the tour that they understand why we navigate the way we do now. And it's not as much of an uphill battle for me to press that argument anymore. I mean, it's more than just I want the adventure to be high. I think we're doing it the most realistic way, because every time we put a track out there and something changes, the people that can't adapt to that change always say, well, you screwed us. I've heard that a zillion times. I'd have made it if your track hadn't been bad. And it's over something stupid like somebody cut a set of switchbacks up a hill to replace a trail that used to just $sign the hill. And somebody will not understand that that's, you know, you're still just going to the top of that hill. The number of times that's happened are the stuff of legends. So I know those waypoints are going to be good because I put them in places I know that things aren't going to move. And I try to go out and verify them as much as I can. When Jim did it this year, first guy through, I talked to him extensively every day about points. I bugged the crap out of him, said, dude, how were the waypoints in places I haven't been? And he and others verified, yep, they were right where you said they were going to be. So that's it. So that's what's coming this year. That's what's new and exciting. Let me see if we have any questions here. I see a lot of comments. Don't see any questions. Hey, Jim and Ed, did you guys get a bowl game up there at State? I didn't. Kentucky got a really good bowl game. We got a New Year's Day game, and we won it. But I didn't check up with Washington State in all the excitement of being gone from this best of all possible places for a month. Mm-hmm. By the way, my Shelby's for sale. Good guy discount if any of you want it, but it's I've already had inquiry after inquiry, so I think it's going to go. Yeah, we went to the lovely Sun Bowl. Who'd you play, and did you win? Oh no, that sounds bad. It'll be better for you guys next year. That's right, because you lost your coach, so you guys had assistant coaches coaching that game. Jim and his dad Ed. Jim is the athletic trainer at Washington State, and
Oh,
so they're big fans. Um, so lay questions on me if you got them, because I'm not going to do another one of these for another month or so. I will start. I will. I promise. In the next few days, get the team page up. I will get I'll get all the teams that have done everything I've asked them to do. I'll get that stuff going. I will update the website a little bit, and I'll start putting up maps and directions and things like that for the known parts in February and March. We'll get through all that stuff in about the normal time frame, but the mystery stuff you won't get until you're here. So I do see a question, Sean Casey. 3-man teams, each member carries. Well, that's something that if you go back and look through PBR Mondays and look at the descriptions, that's something that's come up several times. We've talked about it, but it's a good question. And I don't know that it. 3-person teams are kind of rare. There are not a lot of them, but it kind of varies from team to team. Everybody should carry a saw. Now, you don't all have to carry chainsaws. One of those per team will work, but everybody at least needs to be carrying a handsaw. But things like a first aid kit, toolkits, things like that, that's the reason we make it more difficult for 3-person teams, because you can divide all that stuff up. You really only need one spare tube. You only need one patch kit. You can use one toolkit and just take the things that are unique to your bike and put them in there. But, not everybody has to carry a set of tire irons and stuff like that. You need one really good first aid kit. Mostly everybody needs to carry their own survival gear, their own food, their own water and stuff like that. Everybody has to have their own nav and things like that. But for a 3-person team, you can really lower the weight per bike considerably. If you're a soloist, Sean last year was a soloist. Jim Spooner was a soloist. And we had some others last year, and their names just aren't coming to me right now. But those poor schmucks have to carry everything. And Sean even carried a saw last year. He carried, I think, a 193 top handle, which is the same saw that I use. Is that right, Sean? A 193 top handle? I've weighed mine, and it weighs, I think, 9.2 pounds with fuel in it, which isn't bad, but it's still 9.2 pounds. I mean, and if you're a soloist, you're carrying that. And if you're smart, you're carrying a Silky as a backup. When it comes to saws, it's Silky and nothing else. Yeah, 193 top handle. That's what I thought. It's a great little saw. They're easy to start. A lot of the modern still saws have some of this weird circuitry in them and stuff that is really easy to knacker up. But the 193 top handle is a nice saw because it's old school. It's incredibly light. And Sean, I think you did the same thing with yours that I did with mine. You put the lightning kit on it, didn't you? Where you've got the carbide chain and the special bar that's lighter than the stock bar, even though it's bigger. Like the stock bar on those, I think, is maybe a 14 or a 16, and mine's a 17, but it's lighter because it's made for that carbide chain, and I think it's made out of, if I'm not mistaken, it's a titanium alloy. But the thing is great. Those carbide chains are so rugged, you can saw through nails in those things, and I don't recommend doing it, but if you hit a rock or you get in some dirt and something, it really doesn't dull the saw that much. So to answer your question, Sean Casey, it not everybody has to carry everything, but every team does it a little bit different. If you look at Kerry Barton's team from a few years ago, man, they carried a lot. They didn't distribute a load that much. They all had pretty heavy bags, but most 3-person teams that I see come through, they understand, I'm going to make you ride harder stuff and more trail. So you're going to take advantage of the fact that you don't have to carry as much stuff per rider. You could probably knock down 10 pounds per rider. That doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of 12 days of riding fairly stout trails, it is a lot. All right, we got anything else? We can go upstairs and practice some more.
Let's go.
See if anybody else. All these people showed up just because you said we were going to be here. So let's see what else we got. We've been toy hauler shopping, and we found the one we want. What is it? The Alliance Valor 41 V15, right? I got it written down here somewhere. And we may be coming to a neighborhood near you to pick one up because we're gonna find the one that's got the best price, and we'll go find it. All right, Sean, I completely agree with you. Sean, I told you I've been thinking about you earlier. I've been going back and reviewing my climbing days back in the 80s because I'm getting ready to do the same thing now that I did, 40 years ago, make this transition from one thing to the next. And I've just been remembering how much fun I had back in those days, at least for a few years. It was, there's nothing wrong with going to Yosemite. You know what? Red Bull wasn't writing me any checks either. I was, like I said, I had to be at work on Monday morning. I had to take vacation time to go do all that stuff. But like you, we went to the valley and we did good stuff. We were climbing just a little bit below what the guys that were getting checks from, it wasn't Red Bull back then, it was Patagucci and places like that. But, I knew all those guys. We stayed in Camp 4 with them and stuff like that. And they were for sure better than we were. But I remember thinking, those guys are better than we were, but they weren't incredibly better than we were. Dirtbag in the valley is a life. Many have no clue what it means. And dirtbag is a pretty good way to start that sentence too, because there was some dirtbaggery there. I'm sure you know how Bidwell and all those guys managed to fund some of their climbing expeditions. I mean, I like those guys, but I wouldn't let any of them into my house. They were good climbers. There were some guys there, and one of them was a friend of mine, Greg Smith. Financed his trip to Patagonia to climb Cerro Torre by stealing climbing gear. So the guys would be they'd be doing an El Cap route. And back in those days, the way they do these like really cutting edge routes, they climb about halfway up, string ropes, leave their gear up on the wall. They'd rappel down, go down and rest and recuperate for a couple of days, and they'd go back and their gear would all be gone. And there was a handful of guys in Camp 4 that were stealing all that gear, selling it. And one of those guys was a guy I knew, and that's how he paid for his trip all the way down to Patagonia. I couldn't afford to go to Patagonia because I had a regular job, which is not enough.
Your own stuff?
And I bought all my own stuff. All right. Well, we're going to let you all go tonight. Thanks again so much for joining us. I hope everybody that paid for a calendar got one. If you didn't, PM me and let me know. I'll probably be back again in a month or so, and I'll have something more substantial than just gossip, innuendo, old tales, my beautiful wife. But it was worth watching just to hang out with her. I'm at the point now to where I will respond to PMs and inquiries more quickly. So if something comes up, you got a question, ask me. I felt real bad because I get so many once again that. It's hard for me to respond to all of them. And every once in a while, like some of you, like Jensen sent me one about a week ago, and it was like 3 or 4 days. And I just felt terrible because it took me so long to get back. But it really is like trying to take a sip of water out of a fire hose sometimes, just the sheer number of inquiries that come in, most of which I'm not going to answer anyway because they're already answered somewhere. So I will look forward to seeing you all again on a more regular basis, but we're gonna wait a couple months. I'm also, those of you, I do want to talk about one team in particular that's coming this year. We have a team called Team Eagles that's going to do the Tour of Idaho this year. Team Eagles consists of two American heroes. They're both veterans who were injured in the line of duty. They're both Afghanistan and Iraq vets, and these guys are showing up to do the Tour of Idaho this year. And one of the things that's keeping me busy is I'm trying my best to figure out a way to get those guys the very best support that I can to ensure that they have success. I think that I'm one of these corny, old-fashioned guys that really supports police, fire, first responders, military, stuff like that. When they're good people, if they're assholes, I don't support them either. But I know way too many people in those communities that suffer greatly because those are very, very difficult jobs. And these two guys paid, nearly the ultimate price for their country. They're missing limbs, they have closed head injuries and things like that. So we have a team of those guys that are showing up to do the tour this year. And one of the things that's been keeping me busy is trying to make sure that we get those guys the best support possible. I think I've kind of lined that up. And for those of you who are in the little group I put together to help those guys out, I think we are nailing down the date to get those guys all jimmied up. So I think that that'll happen pretty quick, and I'll be there for that. Yes, Jeff knows these guys. They are two great dudes, and I am really, really, really looking forward to getting these guys out here. Also, I don't know if this gentleman's watching tonight, but when I went to purchase a new Ford truck a few months ago, we bought a new truck. Right now, used vehicles are so crazy; it's so hard to get a hold of one that it's just nuts. So I've got a friend that works at the local dealership, and I went down there and said, how much is this old truck worth? The guy says, dude, I guarantee you I can give you what you paid for this truck. And he did. I drove a truck 75,000 miles and owned it for 5 years for $5,000. They gave me within $5,000 of what I paid for it. It was just the most insane thing in the world. So we ordered a new truck from Ford, and it turns out that several people who are involved at the Ford factory in Kentucky either know me from climbing back in Red River Gorge or know me through the tour of Idaho, and I got treated like royalty with this truck. It was a custom-built truck. It's beautiful. And I think one of those guys may be watching tonight, and if so, I can never thank you enough. That truck is badass, isn't it? It's a 350 Platinum, and it's got everything in it, and these guys just built it. You look at the wiring harnesses and stuff in it, and there's like every attention to detail that you could imagine is in that truck. So if any of you guys are watching tonight, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. So I will see you all down the road. Another month or so, we'll start these up on a more regular basis. I hope you all are enjoying yourself. I see David Powell all the time out riding down the desert. I see that Sean was down there with Amber, your significant other. I see you guys out riding all the time. Looks like a lot of you are having fun. We're doing the same thing here, just not with motorcycles. These instruments on the wall behind us don't play themselves. So thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Looking forward to seeing you all again down the road. Cheers.